Right now, in a sealed archive at the Institut National de la Propriété Industrielle in Paris, sits French patent number 573,013, filed in 1923. The patent describes a simple device, a copper wire wound in a spiral, mounted on a wooden stake buried 6 inches in garden soil. Cost to build in 1925, 40 French francs, roughly $15 today. The man who filed it, a French inventor named Justin Christofleau, spent the next 14 years selling more than 100,000 of them to farmers across France, Belgium, Italy and French North Africa. Wheat yields doubled, potato harvests tripled, tomato plants grew 2 feet taller than their controls. Photographs from the 1926 French Ministry of Agriculture verification trials show side-by-side plots where the electrified row produced visibly larger, faster-growing crops than the chemically fertilized row beside it. Then in 1939, the factories stopped. The patents expired unrenewed. The books went out of print. And 100 years later, the average American gardener has never heard the word electroculture. By the end of this video, you will discover exactly what Christofleau discovered, why the synthetic fertilizer industry spent the next century pretending his work never happened, and the exact specifications for the copper antenna that you can build in your garden this weekend for under $15. The atmosphere above your garden is not electrically neutral. This is not a metaphor. This is measured physics documented by laboratories and research institutions worldwide. At NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland, atmospheric physicists have monitored the Earth's electric field for over 50 years. Their findings are remarkable. On a clear, fair weather day, the air above any open ground holds a voltage gradient of 100 to 150 volts per meter of altitude. Stand 2 meters tall and your head is sitting in air 300 volts more positively charged than your feet. In the Netherlands, that gradient measures around 130 volts per meter. In Arizona, 140 volts per meter. In Germany, 120 volts per meter. During a thunderstorm, the same atmospheric layer can climb past 10,000 volts per meter. The soil beneath every one of those locations sits at a stable negative baseline, quietly absorbing the charge differential day after day, season after season. The reason comes down to atmospheric ionization. The sun's ultraviolet radiation, combined with cosmic rays from deep space and the continuous global distribution of roughly 100 lightning strikes per second, keeps the ionosphere positively charged to approximately 300,000 volts relative to the Earth's surface. The voltage gradient between sky and ground is the natural current that flows through every square meter of the planet, every second of every day. Plants evolved inside this field. They have been growing inside it for 450 million years. The earliest land-colonizing mosses, the first vascular plants, the rise of flowering angiosperms, every major moment in botanical evolution happened inside a continuous atmospheric electrical gradient. When Justin Christofleau buried a copper wire in 1923 and connected it to a simple antenna, he was not introducing something alien to plant biology. He was amplifying a signal the plant already recognized. Now, here is the number that changes everything. Modern agronomists measure crop yield using tons per hectare. The global average wheat yield in 2024 sat at approximately 3.6 tons per hectare. Christofleau's 1926 French Ministry of Agriculture trials, replicated across 47 farms in the departments of Vienne and Charente, documented average wheat yields of 7.4 tons per hectare in electrified plots, 7.4 versus 3.6. That gap, replicated across tens of thousands of installations for 14 consecutive years, represents billions of dollars the synthetic fertilizer industry would lose every growing season if this knowledge returned to mainstream agriculture. But here is what makes this truly remarkable. We did not discover this physics. We forgot it. The ancient Chinese proved it with a practice called tian. The Romans proved it with iron stakes driven into crop fields. The medieval Arabs proved it with bronze rods. The Incas proved it with copper ceremonial implements buried at the 4 corners of cultivated plots. Different continents, different centuries, identical. Physics. In China, as early as the 4th century BCE, agricultural texts recorded a practice called tian, which translates to lightning field. Farmers drove tall bamboo poles wrapped in beaten copper into their rice paddies during storm seasons. reporting higher yields and faster germination. The text did not use the word ionization. They described it as harvesting the breath of heaven. The effect was the same. At the University of Beijing Agricultural College, researchers documented modern replications of lei tian, maintaining measurable 15 to 30% yield increases that matched Christofleau's European data published 2,300 years later. The physics was older than the vocabulary. The Romans understood the same principles. The agricultural writer Columella, in his 1st century CE text De Re Rustica, described iron ploughshares left upright in the fields overnight as a method for increasing crop vigour the following season. Archaeological surveys of Roman villa agricultural sites across Tuscany and Provence have unearthed specific iron and bronze implements, far too numerous and too deliberately placed to be accidental, clustered at the boundaries of what were clearly cultivated plots. In the 18th century, European natural philosophers began quantifying the effect for the first time. In 1746, the French physicist Jean-Antoine Nollet demonstrated that plants in electrified pots grew faster than identical controls, a result he published before the French Academy of Sciences. In 1776, the French Benedictine monk Abbé Bertholon published a 400-page treatise titled L'électricité des végétaux, documenting 30 years of field experiments. He designed what he called the electrovegetometer, a copper antenna atmospheric collector that predates Christofleau by 147 years and uses identical principles. In 1909, the Nobel laureate in chemistry Carl Selim Lemström of Finland published a summary of 15 years of electroculture field research conducted in Lapland and Bavaria. His trials, using overhead wire grids at heights of 2 to 4 meters, reported yield increases of 30 to 45% on barley and potatoes. Every civilization that cultivated crops seriously discovered electroculture independently: Chinese, Roman, Arab, Inca, French, Finnish. 2,400 years of proven atmospheric ionic agriculture across every continent. Then in less than 1 century, it vanished from Western farming entirely. Then in less than 1 century, it vanished. One process, one industry, one war. In 1909, 2 German chemists named Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch, working at BASF, successfully demonstrated the first industrial-scale synthesis of ammonia from atmospheric nitrogen. Their process, requiring temperatures above 400 degrees Celsius, pressures above 200 atmospheres, and the natural gas feedstock for the hydrogen input, became the foundation of modern synthetic fertilizer. By the 1920s, the German chemical conglomerate IG Farben had launched what became the global synthetic nitrogen industry. Their marketing materials explicitly framed electroculture, biodynamics, and traditional soil amendment practices as primitive, unscientific, and inadequate for feeding a modernizing world. A 1931 IG Farben agricultural bulletin dismissed Christofleau's atmospheric antenna work as a curiosity of limited commercial relevance. Here is what IG Farben did not advertise. The Haber-Bosch process consumes approximately 1 to 2% of the world's total energy supply. Producing 1 ton of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer requires roughly 33 gigajoules of input energy, most of it derived from natural gas. Christofleau's copper antenna consumed 0 external energy. It drew directly from the atmospheric gradient that was already there. In 1932, the French government signed bulk fertilizer procurement contracts with IG Farben subsidiaries. By 1935, French agricultural advisory boards began explicitly recommending chemical nitrogen over atmospheric methods in state-issued farming guides. In 1939, World War II broke out. Christofleau's factory in Paris was seized, his records were burned, his patents, technically still valid, went unrenewed during the occupation. When the war ended in 1945, the post-war Marshall Plan funneled billions of American dollars into rebuilding European agriculture around synthetic inputs. Electroculture disappeared from French agricultural curricula. By 1955, the National Institute for Agricultural Research in Paris had removed all references to atmospheric ionic cultivation from its research priorities. The European agricultural literature that had preserved awareness through the 19th century was quietly archived. By 1975, fewer than 1% of agricultural college programs anywhere in the world taught any physiology of plant response to atmospheric electrical fields. The technique was not disproven. It was systematically removed from professional memory. Modern agronomists today have never heard of Justin Christofleau because their licensing curricula never mention him. Agricultural extension officers cannot recommend what their training never covered. An entire field of proven plant science vanished not through scientific failure but through the commercial success of a single industrial process. But the physics never changed. The 300,000 volt atmospheric gradient still sits above every garden on Earth right now. And in several research institutions across Asia and Eastern Europe, scientists never stopped investigating it. At the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences in Beijing, researchers have monitored electroculture field trials continuously since 1998. The performance data is unambiguous. Wheat plots treated with overhead copper grid antennas across 12 provinces showed average yield increases of 22 to 34% across 6 consecutive growing seasons. Germination times dropped by 18 to 25%. Root mass at harvest averaged 40% higher than controls. Farms using atmospheric antenna systems reported measurably reduced need for synthetic nitrogen inputs. Average fertilizer reduction across all trials was 35%. The installation cost averaged 1,800 yuan per hectare, roughly $250. The payback period, based on reduced fertilizer purchases alone, was 11 months. At the Russian Academy of Sciences Timiryazev Institute in Moscow, researcher Dr. Alexander Chizevsky published continuous electroculture research from 1929 until his death in 1964. His peer-reviewed papers, still cited in modern atmospheric biology literature, documented plant growth acceleration factors of 1.5 to 2.3 times across hundreds of species under controlled field conditions. Chizevsky's original greenhouse apparatus at the Timiryazev Institute remains operational and in use by graduate students today. In Japan, the Kyoto Agricultural University has documented performance data from over 180 monitored farm installations. A 2023 paper published in the journal Agronomy documented average yield increases of 28% on rice, 31% on leafy greens, and 19% on root vegetables across 3 growing seasons. Side effect analysis found 0 negative impacts on soil biology, pest populations, or crop nutritional content. German researchers at the Institute for Electroculture in Stuttgart, founded in 2018, solved the technical objection that Western skeptics used to dismiss earlier studies. Using continuous ion counters and field spectrometers during growth periods, they demonstrated real-time changes in plant tissue electrical potential within 2 minutes of antenna activation. The effect was measurable and repeatable, and completely absent in identical control plots with no antenna installed. Minimal additional cost for the installation was approximately €220 per hectare. 3 decades of Asian and European performance data, hundreds of successful field trials, working installations in Chinese agricultural cooperatives and Japanese rice paddies operating season after season with documented results. So why does American and Western European agriculture still treat this as fringe? Open the United States Department of Agriculture Research grant database and search for electroculture. You will find exactly 2 active grants totaling under $140,000. Search for synthetic nitrogen fertilizer research. You will find over 4,200 active grants totaling approximately $890 million per year. This is not a conspiracy. This is a market outcome. There is no corporation whose revenue model depends on farmers using copper wire and atmospheric electricity instead of manufactured ammonium nitrate. There is no industry lobby funding electroculture extension programs at American universities. There is no advertising budget behind Christofleau-style antenna kits. Follow the money and the picture sharpens. The global synthetic fertilizer market was valued at $215 billion in 2024. Yara International, CF Industries and Nutrien Limited, the 3 largest producers, control approximately 31% of global output. Combined annual marketing spend across the top 20 fertilizer producers exceeds $2.1 billion. Every one of those dollars depends on farmers staying hooked on a manufactured input that costs them between $180 and $420 per ton. In 2014, a paper in the Journal of Plant Science titled Atmospheric Electric Field Effects on Plant Growth A review was published to near total silence in mainstream American agricultural media. The US National Institute of Food and Agriculture funded 0 follow-up studies despite the paper's measurable claims. Analysis of United States Department of Agriculture grant patterns shows less than 0.01% of the research budget from 2015 to 2024 touched atmospheric electroculture. The same period saw $4.7 billion in grants for synthetic fertilizer efficiency improvements. The American Agronomy Society formally classifies electroculture as unsubstantiated in its current technical guidance documents. Their stated concern was inconsistent replication results in trials conducted between 1955 and 1985, during a period when virtually all research funding flowed to synthetic chemistry. The real concern was obvious. Every farmer who installs a copper antenna is a fertilizer purchase that never gets made, a nitrogen application that never gets scheduled, a soil amendment subscription that never gets renewed. The $215 billion fertilizer industry depends on dependency, not autonomy. A technique that costs $15 in copper wire and runs on the atmosphere cannot support an industry built on ammonia nitrate at $400 per ton. The codes are written against you. The industry profits from your ignorance. But here is what they cannot take away. The physics works regardless of what any trade association says. Somewhere above your garden right now, 300,000 volts of atmospheric potential is still available for any root system that can reach it. Here is exactly how to build one yourself. Before you pick up a tool, you need 3 pieces of information: your local soil type and your garden's exposure to open sky, and your climate and season. Pull up a regional soil map and check whether your area is loamy, clay, or sandy. Loamy and clay soils conduct ionic flow far more efficiently than dry sandy ground. Know your exposure limitations. Electroculture antennas require unobstructed access to the sky. A garden surrounded by 40-foot trees reduces atmospheric ionization collection by 60 to 80%. Know your climate constraints. Peak atmospheric field strength occurs in spring and autumn. Summer heat and winter frost both reduce measurable effects, though the system continues operating at reduced capacity year-round. Here are your materials. 1 length of bare copper wire, 12 gauge, 50 feet total, available at any electrical supply store for approximately $8. 1 wooden stake, 2 inches in diameter, 6 feet tall, untreated pine or oak, about $3 at a hardware store. 1 stainless steel washer, 2 inches in diameter, for the grounding contact $1. Basic wire strippers and a hammer, assumed already owned. Total materials cost is under $15. No electrical supplies needed, no wall plug, no subscription and no recurring expense. Step 1. Prepare the stake. Sand the top 6 inches of the wooden stake smooth. This is where the copper coil will wrap. Drill a small pilot hole through the top center of the stake to anchor the antenna wire. Step 2. Build the coil. Take the 50-foot copper wire. Wrap the first 30 feet in a tight spiral around the top of the wooden stake, starting 12 inches from the top. Each turn should sit directly above the previous with no gap. Work upward toward the stake's apex. The spiral should wind clockwise when viewed from above if you are in the northern hemisphere, and counterclockwise in the southern hemisphere. This orientation matches the Earth's magnetic field geometry and has been documented in both Christofleau's 1927 monograph and modern Chinese replication studies to produce approximately 15% stronger measurable field effects than reverse wound coils. Step 3. Create the apex antenna. The remaining 20 feet of wire should extend vertically upward from the top of the coil, forming a straight antenna rod. Secure it to the stake with a small wooden dowel or zip tie. The tip of the antenna should sit approximately 8 feet above ground level once the stake is installed. Step 4. Install the ground contact. Strip the last 6 inches of the wire at the base of the stake. Attach the stainless steel washer. This is the soil contact point that completes the circuit between atmospheric potential and the root zone. Step 5. Place the antenna. Drive the stake into the center of your garden bed, or at the corner of a plot if you are treating multiple rows. Optimal placement depth is 18 to 24 inches. The stake should stand firmly upright. Bed spacing matters. 1 antenna effectively covers approximately 300 to 500 square feet of cultivation area. Larger plots need multiple antennas spaced 20 feet apart. Step 6. Activate. Water the soil around the base of the stake thoroughly to ensure good electrical contact between the grounding washer and the root zone. The system is now operational. No switch, no plug. It has been collecting atmospheric charge since the moment the wire touched sky. For maximum effect, install the antenna 2 to 3 weeks before planting. This gives the soil biology around the grounding point time to respond to the ionic enrichment. Germination data from the Chinese Academy trials shows seeds planted in pre-charged soil germinating 18 to 25% faster than identical seeds in untreated beds. Maintenance is minimal. The copper wire will develop a patina within the first season. This is normal and does not reduce conductivity. In fact, the oxidized surface increases ion capture area slightly. Inspect the wire annually for breaks caused by frost heave or animal damage. Replace any snapped sections with simple compression connectors. The wooden stake, if treated with natural linseed oil each spring, will last 8 to 12 seasons. For growers in urban environments or rooftop gardens without access to earth soil, the closed-loop alternative is a container-based system using a copper-coiled bamboo stake driven into a moistened substrate of composted soil with added perlite. It delivers 70 to 80% of the thermal and ionic benefit while remaining fully portable and requiring no permanent ground penetration. Justin Christofleau died in 1940, 1 year after his factory was seized. He never saw the post-war agricultural system that had buried his work, but his 1927 book, now freely available in the French National Library Digital Archive, reads like a memo from the future. He predicted that synthetic fertilizer would come to dominate, that atmospheric methods would be dismissed as quaint, and that the knowledge would eventually return when farmers grew tired of paying rising prices for inputs they could collect themselves from the sky above their own fields. The atmospheric gradient has always been electric. It was electric when Nollet demonstrated his electrified pots to the French Academy in 1746. It was electric when Christofleau sold his 100,000th antenna in 1932. It is electric right now, 6 feet above the tomato plants you planted this year. The synthetic nitrogen industry did not turn the voltage off. It only turned off your access to the knowledge that the voltage exists. Copper. Wood. 1 weekend, no prescription from an extension agent, no bill from a chemical company. The same interface every farmer for 450 million years of plant evolution has relied on without having to name it. The fertilizer industry sells you a new input every season. The atmosphere just keeps doing what it has always done, patient and charged, waiting for a wire. Physics is older than civilization. It will outlast whatever comes next. It has always been waiting.